Hey everybody, this week, real quick, up top, I wanted to thank all the people again for the kind reviews and the high ratings on iTunes. It's very kind of you. It's helping us out. We're glad that we're actually, doing something that people enjoy. This week we're talking with David Melville. David Melville's one of the co-founders of the independent Shakespeare company here in Los Angeles. Every summer they put on just a bunch of free shows in Griffith Park, which is, as you might guess, a park here in Los Angeles. They're wonderful. I go to as many as possible with my wife. We always go. We enjoy them. And David brings a lot of comedy to his shows, where necessary, but in places that some people don't normally necessarily find it, and he makes it a little more accessible maybe than some people do. While I'm not entirely a Philistine, it does take an awful lot for me to sit through just about anything for too long, so his comedy I find helps. I was lucky enough to talk with him before they performed As You Like It a few weeks back. There's a clip of that actually at the end of this, and it's pretty great. So you'll get that. He wanted to talk about Gerard Hoffnung at the Oxford Union. Now, I had never heard of Gerard Hoffnung before he brought him up. He's more of a name in England, and I'm glad that I know who he is now. This is a really great album. If you're American, then maybe there might be a slight accent barrier, but that's okay. It's quite good and quite funny. Maybe a little unusual to you, perhaps. Was to me at first, but I really like it quite a bit. And the ending is quite nice and poignant. And I made sure to tag that whole thing at the end of this episode. So let us know what you think. I hope you enjoy the episode. And one other thing is I noticed that you can buy the entire thing digitally on Amazon, and we always put a link up to being able to buy to where you can buy the album on comedyonvinyl.com. Some people don't necessarily go there; they go there from iTunes. But yeah, you can get it for 89 cents per side of the record. It's a shorter record anyway, but it's definitely worth a listen. The vinyl's a little harder to get, but not impossible. So enjoy this episode, and thanks again. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us this week. I have David Melville with me. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Jason.
And in case people don't know, you are a co-founder of the independent Shakespeare company here in Los Angeles.
That's right, yeah.
And we're here tonight to see As You Like It. And but you wanted to talk about Gerard Hoffnung's at the Oxford Union.
Gerard Hoffnung, what is it called? Gerard Hoffnung at the Oxford Union.
Yes, right. So, I had never heard of this, and I love when people surprise me. So, is this something you grew up listening to?
Yeah, I did. It's interesting. I mean, when you said pick, one of your favorite comedy records, this probably wouldn't have been the one that would have been at the top of my list.
Yeah.
A few years ago. Mm-hmm. When I grew up in the UK, we only had 3 channels.
Yeah.
Well, one of them wasn't worth watching. So.
Right.
And that was it, really. And I was at boarding school, so, and we didn't have a video recorder. They were invented at some point, but we couldn't afford one.
Right.
And the only way you could sort of get to know stuff was on these records. And I remember Fawlty Towers was one of my favourite TV shows.
Sure.
And but I first sort of experienced it through these records that I'd be given at Christmas.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And then eventually got around to seeing them on TV when I was my summer holidays or whatever coincided with them actually playing it on television.
Yeah.
One of the 2 channels when they weren't playing. What did they play? Curling or darts.
Oh my god!
Hours and hours of darts they would be on television. So I used to buy a lot of these records. So Monty Python,
Sure.
My first experience with Monty Python with the records, not the TV show. All sorts of other things, and I would go through my father's record collection looking for stuff, and he was the second trumpet player in the London Symphony Orchestra.
Oh wow!
So he had a massive record collection, and all classical records. No, he had 1 or 2 sort of jazz things, and a couple of interesting some Beatles records, and there were just a couple of these these old comedy records that he had. And there was some singles from Peter Sellers back in that were produced by George Martin. On the Parlophone label, which used to be a comedy label.
Oh, right.
And then until he signed the Beatles, and then it became like the Beatles.
Of course, yeah. Did he have She Loves You, the bit where he just does She Loves You 6 different ways?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God. That is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard in my life.
Well, I often break out Peter Sellers doing Richard III as... doing A Hard Day's Night as Richard III.
Yes.
Or as Laurence Olivier. But then there was this record, and I first knew Gerard Hoffnung because he's really an incredible man. Principally, I suppose he was an artist or a cartoonist, and he did cartoons for some of the papers and stuff. But he was really famous for these cartoons that he would do about orchestras and musicians getting into funny, like playing a musician trying to master an instrument, which actually sort of turns into a snake, which ends up devouring him. I think that's how people got to know him, was through his cartoons, and then he ended up being a sort of pundit on the radio back in the 50s, and through that sort of got booked to do a bit of some after dinner speaking. He's not a comedian,
right?
He was what do they call him, a raconteur or something like that, a public speaker. And I don't know that he did a huge amount of it either, and the BBC recorded one of these, which was him addressing the Oxford Union in December 4th 1958, and this is the record. And my dad would say, I'm listening to all my comedy records. No, you need to listen to Hoffnung. And I did listen to it quite a bit, and it was, the humour is, it's very British, which is interesting because he's actually German.
Right.
But then if you go far enough back, everything in Britain is sort of German.
That is true.
But it's sort of like proto Monty Python in a way. It's like the sort of very British vein of sort of the humour of the absurd. But his material actually isn't on paper that great. A lot of his stuff was just reading letters. He did had a whole bit where he wrote to some people in Yugoslavia or someone trying to plan holidays. Which is what you had to do back then. You had to write. I remember when I went on my first camping trip, I had to write in French to some campsite, and then I would receive this handwritten letter back saying, "Yes, you are confirmed."
Amazing.
And there was sort of broken English they would write back in, and so he wrote to some European places, and he would read these sort of absurd replies that he would get. There is a French widow in every room. Stuff like that.
It's really amazing.
So I suppose they're all true.
Right.
He might have been making them up.
He could have been, but he even retells it. So shows on the cover. I have a slightly different. My album cover slightly different than this, but it the Bricklayer's story, which I did a little research on. I know I'd heard of it before. That's his retelling of a retelling, but I guess he's notorious for just the way he retold it, his timing, his dragging that out.
On paper, it's a vaguely amusing story. I guess he got it out of Reader's Digest or something like that.
Right. Yeah,
and but he just reads it verbatim. But it's his timing. Which is just genius. And his phrasing. I think the funniest bit is where are people going to listen to it? Or is it,
I'm going to put clips in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's the bit where the final bit, because he goes up and down the bricks.
Right.
The bricks haul him up, and then the bricks come down, and then there's the empty barrel, and there's this long pause. It was then I lost my presence of mind. Just the way he says it, I don't know whether it sounds like he's about to burst into laughter himself, or he also sounds like he's had several glasses of something.
Oh yes, he does. Yeah.
And I don't know whether he really did, or whether it's just his shtick. But And it was the 50s, and everybody back then was sort of walking around and half them.
And what was kind of blowing my mind too is when I looked up how old he was when he did this, which is not very. That he was born in 1925, so he was 33 when he did this?
Yeah.
How the hell is that possible?
I know. And when you look at the pictures of him, and he looks like he's, well, that's his drawing of him, but he doesn't look like...
No.
Well, it's the English diet,
Yes, right.
Yeah, no, he's bald and a bit tubby. But, and he was dead the next year.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And he sort of, what I found too interesting also, besides doing the research on him, is that just the very end, the coda of the whole thing is not remotely comedic. It's just, I'm a big hippie, and here's how I feel, and I thought it was beautiful. It's really beautiful.
It's nice,
it's not,
and some of those toffs at the Oxford Union start heckling him.
Yeah. A little bit.
I'm here to talk about me! That's sort of surprising in a way, because, and when as a kid, I guess slightly rebelling in my own way. My father was a classical musician, there was lots of classical music, and I was into rock and roll and everything. And,
sure.
I suppose my initial sort of feeling about Hoffnung probably was that he was a little bit sort of fusty and, but he's not. He's
right.
And like you say, he's sort of a proto-hippie. He's it's funny, I don't know, if he'd lived into the 60s, I think he would have been quite happy with that generation. Because the thing he says at the end of the, so I won't feel like my life started until the youth of today actually stand up and, take on these issues, like, what does he call it, equal color opportunities or something like that. And he was definitely, fighting homophobia and he was a Quaker.
Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of fascinating to me too. But he just barely missed it. Just barely. He just barely misses English rock. He just barely misses, a huge social movement.
Well,
it's a little sad. But
he would organize these concerts.
Oh yeah.
With these really wacky concerts where they would. I think Malcolm Arnold wrote a piece called, was it a Grand Overture or something? It was dedicated to the president. U.S. President at the time, Hoover.
Yeah.
And it was a classical piece, all played by vacuum cleaners.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I feel rather like the man who, when asked which organ he would like to keep, said he wanted to keep his navel, and when they said why. When he said, why? What's this? When he was asked why, he said, because I have a strange habit. I eat celery in bed, and it's a very convenient place to keep the salt.
And then there was another piece where the pianist was playing, I don't know, Grieg or something, and the orchestra were playing Tchaikovsky, and they were fighting each other.
Oh my God, that's good.
Yes, and he was. So he did all, and he was a tuba player as well. He would, he could play there's a classical piece with a tuba solo that he would do. So he did all of these things. So incredibly skilled.
Were you aware of him before the album, though, at all? Was it just something...
I knew him from... my first sort of... I think at my grandparents' house, when I was a kid, I'd pull out all of their cartoon books, and there was several books of Hoffnung's cartoons.
Okay.
So I knew he was through that, and then, I don't know when I first listened to the record, but it was probably, in my early teens, I think. But really, I just completely forgot about him.
Yeah.
For many, many years, until... I read a review of my performance of Benedict and Much Ado About Nothing. With Stephen Lee Morris, who's the editor of the theatre page at the LA Weekly. Gave us a lovely review, and he was talking about how my character was channeling Gerard Hoffnung. I'd had the hardest time with this part because I literally, this is absolutely true. The dress rehearsal, I did not have a character.
Yeah.
I thought the play was going to be our biggest flop ever. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. I just hadn't found a way into it. And that happens more often than is comfortable.
Sure.
Because one of my jobs, I produce the festival with my wife as well as sometimes direct, but I'm normally acting in something. So I'm thinking about all these other things, and often the performance is the last thing to happen.
Yeah.
And we were working. I just didn't really quite find a way into Benedict, and I guess he's normally sort of approached as a sort of playboy or aging playboy, and he's he's always playing the women and everything, and it just wasn't working for me, and it just wasn't clicking. And so I was in the car when I was thinking about why isn't this man married and settled down? Why is he railing against women? Why hasn't it clicked for him? And I thought, look at it from the opposite. Look at it from the female's perspective and think, well, maybe this guy, has never settled down with a woman because he's impossible to live with. And I thought, well, what would the archetype be for that? And I thought about the sort of typical sort of English gent, pipe smoking. Here's a picture of Hoffnung smoking a pipe. Very set in his ways, and because Benedict is sort of middle-aged, and he's one of those guys that's, he's so, thinking he's so stuck in his ways that. That's why he's not compatible with anybody. He doesn't want any of that to be disturbed. So I thought about all these archetypes, and one of the things that I've been paying some attention to is this really fun magazine and Facebook page group in Britain. The magazine's called The Chap, and they seem to be mostly relatively young people in Britain who are they dress in 30s and 40s clothes, and they sort of affect those personas and manners, and they had the Chap has a manifesto that's sort of, thou shalt never not wear tweed, thou shalt always smoke, thou shalt always cultivate interesting facial hair, and the pictures of some of the people on this Facebook page, they're wearing their tweed jackets, and if they get a new tweed jacket, they'll say, like, I got this wonderful Berwick tweed, they post a picture of it, and they're sort of I guess from a modern perspective quite fusty fashions, but they're really fun. And I thought Benedict would really fit into that. He's a chap, he's someone who smokes a pipe, he has a big moustache, and he's really set in his ways and views women in a very sort of particular way. And part of discovering that was finding this kind of old-fashioned sort of 40s or 50s voice, and I didn't know where it came from, but I was when I read that review and he said, "Oh, it's Gerard Hoffnung." Oh my God, that's it! It's Hoffnung, and suddenly it all made a lot of sense. And then I went back, and next time I was back in the UK, and I often, whenever I go back, my dad and I will stay up till like 4 o'clock in the morning listening to records.
That's awesome.
And we were listening to this, and I was like, oh. And so he let me have it. I brought it back. I brought it back to the USA. I have it's in my hands right now, but unfortunately I do not have a record player. So it's absolutely useless, but it's quite pretty, and it says on the back, Christmas from Jeff, Christmas 1960. I think Jeff might have been an ex-boyfriend of my mother's or something, so it's been crossed out.
Actually, and I saw that show, and now I can hear it now that you say that. Now that that's so funny. Now I'm going to have to listen to this again, though, with that in mind. Just that's sort of who you then realized you were channeling.
Well, and then going back and then listening to it again, it's like, his timing and his phrasing are sort of picked up. And I guess I'm playing Touchstone tonight. Maybe there's a bit of him in that. It's what's interesting listening to this record is how much he projects his voice, because he's in the Oxford Union, and he's. Well, there are microphones there, obviously, because he's being recorded. But they probably weren't amplifying him,
right?
So he's actually performing on a stage, ostensibly unmiked, and that's how we perform here. So we really have to project, and actually there's something about that makes you much more physically engaged as a performer.
Sure.
And there were the few times that I've been on a stage and have been on a microphone. I've never done stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But we do our little vaudeville stuff, and now did you see Comedy of Errors last year?
Yes, I did.
So Dr. Pinch, the part I played in that, I was playing the ukulele. We had a little 40s band.
Yeah.
Now he's gone on. We got booked for parties and weddings.
That's
and stuff
amazing.
Like that.
Amazing.
We've become a little band, and we do stuff. And there's half the fun of it is the shtick in between the songs.
Sure.
But being on a microphone, and it's a very different skill.
Yeah.
That modern stand-up comedians are very adept with. Mm-hmm. But it's a I guess it's the difference between an electric guitar and acoustic.
Sure.
But there's something great about a performer really using all of their body to project and making their voice really loud, which is what he has to do. So
sure.
And then part of that is really sort of going with the vowel sounds. Mm-hmm. And there's some of his phrasing is really sort of put so. He's got a big sort of soaring. It does sound sort of old-fashioned, which is fun.
It's also funny too when he gets really quiet. It's very difficult to hear, but there are a couple times he even shushes them when it's clear either he's cracking up or he's done something that's making them crack. It's like shh. Yes. Yeah, it's so freaking funny. What I was going to ask is, as far as acting physically, and like you say, and having to project and all that, is there any different approach to you to doing drama than to doing comedy as far as physicality?
It's not something I think about a whole lot.
Sure.
It just sort of, for me, comedy is, it only works if it has logical sense. Sure. That it's actually grounded in some kind of reality. Mm-hmm. Even though we can go really quite wacky and off the wall, there has to be. I hate to use the word truth because there is no truth in the theatre. It's all lies.
Yeah.
If we were actually telling the truth,
we'd be very bored.
Yes.
For one.
Or if we actually believed that this were true, we would need to be in a psychiatric ward.
That is true.
So finding the truth about any particular situation. Oh, that does the ice cream man. But I do a lot physically. I think quite a physical performer. But it always, it's whatever the character is. Mm-hmm. It's a touchstone, and I hadn't really thought about it, what I was doing, until one night I came out because I've been checking sound levels and stuff, and I watched J-Quiz when J-Quiz is. There's a bit where he's met the fool in the forest, and he's doing an impression of me, which I didn't know. And he's making all these he's got these really floppy legs, and I'm going, what? Is that really what I do? And I was watching myself, and I'm like, God, look, my legs are all floppy. And it was not something I was thinking about. It just sort of happens. So I've got very lazy as an actor, I suppose. I just let it happen.
Right.
But there's a lot that we do in terms of spacing and the physical movements in order to make it work. Mm-hmm. I have this sort of sense. It's like the hairs go. I feel physically ill if the timing is wrong. And I don't know what it is. But if something's not clicking or the spacing is wrong, it just it makes me angry. And I have to deal with it there and then. And often it's things like if someone is moving on a line or something like that, and it kills the punchline, and I have to please don't move on that line because we're not getting that laugh. And then it becomes, oh, don't move on any of Melville's lines. No, seriously, it's the formula, and if you fuck with if you
it's okay. Go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
if you screw up the formula, then it doesn't work. So that kind of stuff, yes, we get very specific with.
I have had various jobs from time to time. This was much later. I had various jobs. It was very interesting. I can't remember. The first job I had was for the Ministry of Pension, when I attended to letters which people sent to us, things like sir, I have been in bed with a doctor for a week. And he doesn't seem to be doing me much good. If things don't improve, I must get another doctor. Sir, this is to notify you that I have given birth to twins in the enclosed envelope. Re your dental inquiry. The teeth on top are fine, but the ones in my bottom are hurting.
Are you musical at all?
Yes.
I mean, I know you are because I've seen you do Dr. Pinch and the Pinch-Tones, but outside of that, was that a big thing for you early on?
Not really. My father tried to make me learn the piano when I was 3, and we had a big screaming row, I was going to say. And I said I hate him. And then he didn't like being hated by his 3-year-old, so he didn't push me to learn any instruments after that. And so it wasn't really until I was in my 20s when I picked up the guitar.
Yeah.
And then I got a bit better at it in my 30s. And in my 40s I started writing songs, and last year I wrote a musical. Which I co-wrote with Melissa, but I wrote all the music, and we put that on. We're developing that, and I think that's got some legs. It's going to go. So it's quite a serious subject, although it's also not without humour.
Sure.
But yeah, Dr. Pinch and the Pinch-Tones is really fun, and I've started writing songs in that style now.
That's awesome.
And I think we're thinking about doing a Dr. Pinch and the Pinch-Tones show. We're doing a Christmas special.
Oh, that's good.
And we think there might be some kind of a Pinch-Tones musical review.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a musical review based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. That is,
oh my God,
starring Dr. Pinch.
Oh my God.
So
that's something I would line up to see.
With all these happy, frothy 30s and 40s tunes.
Right.
It's a really interesting combination because, well, you know what happened? Because we set the show in the 40s, and I didn't know what to do with Dr. Pinch, and Melissa had this idea that he was a former Nazi that was hiding out in the woods or something like that. So I kind of went with that as an idea. That's why he ended up being German. And because he's only got 6 lines in the show, and he has to help exercise one of the antiphalae. So I sort of went with that. And I thought, well, what if he was a former Gestapo torturer, and he uses his Gestapo torture techniques in order to exercise. So I got these electrodes out and so whenever we play these live shows now, we still have Dr. Pinch's backstory, which is always a little bit near the knuckle. Sometimes I'll be doing, like we did a benefit, we did vaudeville in the park here, and I'm doing all these jokes about how he now lives in Argentina and stuff like that. And when I come back to the stage, Melissa goes, "That's it, no more Nazi jokes, you're cut off."
Oh, but it's so tempting.
It's you know, there's Kate Flannery was one of our guests there, and I just said, "But the Nazi jokes just make themselves, don't they?" He's pretty near the knuckle, but no one's really complained yet.
Yeah.
No, not really complained.
Do you know that? Well, you maybe haven't thought about this either. I tend to ask these questions that people tend not to think about. It's kind of a bit much, but being in a musical household, do you think that informed your rhythm, or is it something that probably informed your rhythm without you realizing it? Your sense of rhythm?
Yeah, I definitely informed my rhythm without me realizing it. I only really realize now that all of, you know, they feel like the same thing. Playing music and something going really well on stage is musical. Sure. You know, because it has its own rhythm. And oh my God! Now they're racing down the hill on their little. Those better be gone by showtime, or this is going to be a very angry Touchstone the Jester. These children are going to have a formative experience, which is going to scar them for life. But no, that it's all musical in a way. It's all rhythm. And one of the things that we do as a company, which is on the face of it exceptionally dull, but really helpful, is that we really try to follow a specific verse speaking technique.
Yeah.
Where we actually speak iambic pentameter, and you have to do that by not pausing in the middle of a line, taking a little bit of space at the end of a line, and really trying to follow a natural sounding iambic rhythm. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And if you stick with that, it's amazing. The first thing it does is it'll take about 35 minutes off the running time of a show.
Oh, okay.
And it makes it a lot easier for the audience to understand, because they're receiving the information in little nuggets, line by line, rather than if you do what most modern actors do, which is pause an awful lot wherever you feel emotionally like doing it, and then run tons of lines together. It makes it harder to understand, and it takes a lot longer. So when you actually get to a pause that's intentional, it has some weight. Hoffnung's pauses are pretty amazing.
Oh my God.
Some of them are really lengthy. He's just waiting, and then he comes in with the punchline, bang, and he just kills the audience.
It had to have been, I mean, obviously he's quite charming to listen to, but I mean, I think in person there must have been something there too that we're clearly not witnessing.
He seems like an extremely gentle and lovely person.
And again, it still weirds me out. He sounds so much older than he is. I still don't get that. I still don't. The other thing I wanted to ask you, too, is you have injected, I mean, even in Hamlet, injected some really wonderful humor into Hamlet. And I'm not sure, is that just nature for you, or is it something you went out of your way to do? There were a couple moments that were genuinely comedically strong, even if they're still emotionally deep.
I think every Hamlet, it's hard to have a bad Hamlet, because it's such a brilliant play. That even if you have a not terribly good actor, you're going to come away with something. They've got to get something right, because everything is there.
Right.
And the great thing about Hamlet is you can bring Hamlet to yourself. Or rather, bring yourself to Hamlet. You can. Everybody has their own inner Hamlet. And I suppose that my Hamlet was had some comedic rhythms, but I do think that most of the comedy that we found in the play is intentional from Shakespeare. I mean, there's some lines that I think are deliberately intended to be jarringly funny, and it's something that he experimented with a lot in the later half of his career, was how comedy and tragedy can mix. And there was, the law of tragedy and comedy, supposedly as written by the Greeks or the Romans or whoever, is that they should never mix. They're like oil and water or whatever. But he really wanted to mash them up, and so that you get plays like The Winter's Tale, which is the first half is very severe tragedy, and then the second half is raucous, balls out comedy. And then it goes into this sort of strange romance. But but Hamlet has not as much variety, but there are definite moments, and I think like the one moment that always got a laugh was when I would, after that intense scene with Gertrude in the closet, it'll be dragging Polonius's body out, and then he says, "Good night, mother." And like it's any other night, he just happens to be dragging this body, and I think a line that's just so pithy and pat like that, I believe it had to be intentionally funny, and I would get, taken down a peg or two for doing stuff like that. People didn't like it. And then there's some stuff that I would do that was... I had a couple of bits, and I played the part for about 5 years, so by the end I was really stripping away some of the gimmicks that I put in. Early on it was, there were quite a few gimmicks in it. But I got rid of most of those, and it was still... much of the laughter was actually coming out of the language. It's not, I was just, and some of it would be like imageries, like when he's describing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in the closet scene, and he says, my two school friends whom I will trust as I do adders fanged, that just expressing that image in a way that the audience can understand. They laugh. It's a great image. These, and they are like adders fanged, and and it's a funny image, but the audience is understanding and connecting with it, and they're laughing, and that's not inappropriate. But there are a lot of people that would not a lot. There are a few people that believe that Shakespeare should be a bit like going to church.
Right.
My experience of going to church was that it was something, sitting on a hard wooden seat once every week that was supposedly good for you, but it was exceptionally boring. And I think there are some people that feel that that's how Shakespeare, and it's out here in the park, it is raucous fun. With a tragedy like Hamlet, a lot does depend on the where we're doing it. We did Hamlet in the studio, and it was much more intense. So we have a little space. Basically, it's our rehearsal room, but in the off season, we put up 49 seats, and we run little shows. We ran Hamlet in there year before last, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, no, last year, and it was quite a different show. It still had a lot of that humour, but it was much more intense. But out here in the park, when there's 1,000 people watching it, and they're drinking Charles Shaw, not that they should be doing that because it's a Wrexham Parks facility and that's forbidden, and they could get a ticket for that. But some of them somehow are doing it, and there's a party atmosphere, and they will go with it. So you have to watch it a little bit. But it's that's people have come to be entertained, and I believe in giving them what they came for.
Sure,
not to the detriment of the tragedy. Right. The two can exist together.
I am amazing diverted by your entreaty for a room. I can offer you a commodious chamber with a balcony imminent to the romantic gorge, and I hope you want to drop in. A vivacious stream washes my doorsteps, so do not concern yourself that I am not too good in bath. I am superb in bed. Sorrowfully, I cannot abide your otter.
But there's never a conscious effort to find it. You just, if it's there, you try and make sure that it's clearly humor, or no? Am I wrong?
Well, a lot of it can be how do you get into a scene? Mm-hmm. What's going to make this clear, and often by making it clear, it somehow becomes comedic. I mean, one of the big sort of set pieces in Hamlet is the speak the speech.
Yeah.
On paper, that's sort of a dry discourse about the state of theatre back then.
Sure.
It teaches us a lot about what acting was to Elizabethans, and that they appreciated naturalism, and that there were lots of hammy actors back then. And then there's a long piece about the rise of the child companies and how they were taking over. We cut that, but what's important to get from that is that Hamlet is someone who's very excited by theatre, and also, he's got opinions, and he's really quite bossy, but it's one of the few times in the play that you see him happy and excited and animated about something that's not to do with the death of his father.
Right.
He's momentarily not depressed. Mm-hmm. And he's a bit of a closet director, so we went with that and said, well, what if this was him just directing the scene, and in between these lines the actors are trying to speak the lines, and he keeps stopping them, because he keeps, and if these are the great actors that there supposedly are, and who he really admires, then it's not really his place to stop them in the middle of rehearsal, but he does it. Right. So we really went with that, and by doing that, it became quite a funny moment that I think said everything that Shakespeare wanted to say, but at the same time, was funny, and that's an example of it. I don't think that was Shakespeare's intention.
Yeah.
Because he was speaking to his audience about very particular issues back then.
Yeah.
We got the iPhone radio on back there, but that was our way of finding our way into it and making modern corollaries. Louis, when he was playing the player King, would every time I was giving him direction, he was trying to understand it, and he was interpreting it as Marlon Brando or other sort of acting habits, modern acting habits that we could allude to. That, you know, Shakespeare was talking about, you know, their contemporary acting habits, but we sort of made it about that. So, you know, I think it was true to the material, but yeah, I don't think that Shakespeare's intention was that was supposed to be as funny as we made it. But, but it worked, you know, and you know, when we're working on these shows, we really try to find the most imaginative and creative solution, and often the hardest things are the most rewarding in the end, because that's when you come up with something that's surprising and teaches you something new about it that you hadn't thought of before. You know, going back to Benedict and Gerard Hoffnung, you know, that for me, that breakthrough was really interesting, because I don't, you know, most of the people I was working with never perceived the character in that way, and by playing it that way, it really worked for the production, and it worked for me. I don't think that it necessarily would work for another actor, but it sent the play in a direction that I haven't seen. Well, actually, no, I have seen one other actor do that, kind of like that, Nicholas de Provost, in great production at the RSC. But you know, so yeah, it was different. But we always challenge ourselves not to make the obvious choice. You know,
sure.
And sometimes the obvious choice is the best choice, but you have to explore all of the other choices first. But in forcing yourself to go a little bit further, sometimes you can open up a whole new avenue of thought.
Yeah. Was there a lot of comedy stuff in the house, or was it mostly just the music? Was there anything else?
Well, my parents were both very funny people. My father, on my father's side, my family are a lot of them were musical performers in Glasgow, and my sort of great uncle, or you know, a fairly distant uncle, I think. His name was Will Starr. He was a famous accordion player, and he actually had his own musical show at one of the big theatres in Glasgow, and then various other members of the family. They're mostly sort of musical, but you know, with a lot of that sort of comedy, you know, as those musical things were, sure. Funny songs and you know. I never, you know, I think my father mentioned it when I never really paid much attention to it, but it suddenly makes a lot of sense now, given the way my career's going. But on my mother's side, she was a sort of, they were a fairly odd couple, even for the 60s, and that, you know, she was a sort of upper-class English debutante, and he came from you know, his dad was a bus driver, and my grandmother was a conductor on the buses, and you know, came from definitely sort of working class background in a mining community in Scotland. But my mum, no, my grandfather always wanted my mother to be an actress, but she turned out to be a dressage horse trainer, and but my grandfather was a very eccentric man. I wish I had some videotape of him or something. He died when I was 10, but my father still tells stories about him, and he, you know, he's very much of the sort of Hoffnung kind of, you know, he sounded like Hoffnung. And you know, because Hoffnung sounds really quite upper class. You know, when he comes out with all that kind of hippie stuff at the end, you're just slightly surprised. But you know, he's actually, you know, from a German Jewish family, but he sounds, you know, and he came to England when he was 12, wasn't he?
Right.
So it's amazing. He got this very sort of upper class English accent. And my grandfather was sort of wealthy gentleman farmer, who every afternoon would drive his tractor to the pub and have, you know, several pints and a pink gin, and then go and drive around the orchard with his dog on the back of the tractor, and he'd sing dogs and sing songs to the dog. And he had this song called Boozy Barky Bikey Boo, and the dog would howl. He'd go, Boozy Barky Bikey Boo, and I based Sir Toby Belch on my memories of my grandfather, and but yes, they were definitely very eccentric, funny English people, and my dad has good repertoire of jokes and a real sort of musical sense of humour. My mother's sense of humour was incredibly dry. So yeah, there was always a lot of laughter in our house and lots of jokes. My father was a bit of a practical comedy person. He used to, if there was a tense moment at the dinner table, he would like pick up a cheesecake and shove it in my face or something.
Do you know can you recall when you were first exposed to Shakespeare, when that first became I mean, I understand, it's England, so clearly it's always there for you, but I mean, the first time when you were aware that it was something important to you?
I always wanted to be an actor, and I think when I was at prep school, I was in the poetry reading club, and I was given the dagger speech from Macbeth to read, and that was sort of very exciting to me to suddenly have the real stuff to work with, and rather than everyone else getting poems, but I got this thing that was actually a piece of theatre, and that seemed to involve acting. So I think that was really kind of my first memory.
Did your parents, was there anything where they specifically gave you a piece of comedy or an album to listen to besides this, maybe that you should listen to this, it's very funny, or was that, because I hear that every once in a while, some of my guests will say, oh, my parents, you have to listen to this is the comedy that you should like.
Right.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, when I was I remember being very young and catching a piece of Monty Python on the television. And there was a Terry Gilliam cartoon about the house hunters, and the hunters are going around shooting houses, and I just thought that was just a brilliant thing. And then my parents saw me sort of watching it from the corner of the sofa. No, you have to go to bed. Oh no, really? And it was a few years later, I think, that for Christmas they gave me a Monty Python record, and I learnt it off by heart. And I think I embarrassed my mother a lot one night when they took me out to a restaurant, and the only thing I would order was spam. spam and chips.
Do you know which album it was that they got you?
I had the...
too many.
I had the one with the butterfly and the arms going around it. Another side of Monty Python is I had the one where it's got the two, like they have the hidden groove where you play it, and
Tie and Handkerchief, I think.
And you suddenly go, what the hell? I thought this was a different. I don't remember hearing this before. And I'd had the TV series one, the Monty Python one, and the Contractual Obligation album, with all the songs on it. And my friends at school had them on there. We would make cassette tapes of them, and everyone's arriving for their picnic, so it's getting very loud here.
Having freshly taken over the propriety of this notorious house, I am wishful that you remove to me your esteemed costume. Standing among savage scenery, the hotel offers stupendous revelation. There is a French widow in every bedroom. Affording delightful prospect.
Well, maybe then we should wrap it up, since we've got a show and people are arriving. But if you were to recommend this album to anybody who's never heard of him, as I hadn't, what would be your recommendation? Why listen to Hoffnung if you haven't heard him before?
I think that it's for one thing, the humour, it never goes below the navel. Although he has one joke about
an actual navel.
About an actual navel. What was it? What body part would you choose to keep? I said, my navel. Why? Because I like to eat
celery in bed, and that's the best place to keep your salt.
Yes.
What the hell? That's one of the first things he says, and I'm like, what am I listening to? My mind is kind of blown at that.
But it's very clean, and I hear a lot of Hoffnung and Eddie Izzard actually.
Yeah.
In his phrasing and delivery, and that's another thing that Eddie Izzard can do really nicely is that he can do a whole set with he swears a bit and stuff, but it never gets really dirty.
No.
I got the Amaronian. I think it's a good example. It's so easy. A friend of mine's a stand-up comic, and he's most of his comedy is about sports and stuff.
Yeah.
But I go and watch him, and every other comic is like it's absolutely filthy and rape jokes and stuff like that. And, which are in moderation are very funny.
Sure.
But it seems to be that's the go-to now, and I think it's inspiring to hear someone do 30 minutes of really very, very witty, funny stuff that what is it like 50, 60 years later, it would still make you laugh. It feels a little bit dated, but at the same time, a lot of it is,
you have plenty of dessert with you also.
It's still very funny.
I want to make sure then that we that you can plug everything you can here, just where to follow, where to find everything related to the Shakespeare.
Oh, right. Okay. So the web address is iscla.org. That's Independent Shakespeare Company, Los Angeles, acronym ISCLA. ORG for organisation, or org, as they say here. I have to say that because they say dot .org and they go .org. No, not org. Org. Oh. And then they go, your accent's terrible. And the Facebook, Independent Shakespeare, Facebook, Independent Shakespeare. Everything's on the website, really. And then, so we have 2 more weeks here in the park, but we have a studio. We're running a new adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac in the fall. We have Christmas Carol. I do my sort of almost solo Christmas Carol. That's awesome. Which I perform as Charles Dickens, which is very funny as well.
Yeah. You're not drinking stuff?
The nice thing about that is it really Dickens has a really wry sense of humour, and you don't get that in a really sort of in a dramatization of a Christmas Carol. But if you follow just his words, his narrative, you can really connect with. He's got quite a naughty sense of humour, but even like Tiny Tim at some points. So I would definitely recommend coming to see me in A Christmas Carol. And Romeo and Juliet we're doing in the spring in the studio, and then we're back here in the summer for another 10 weeks. We haven't decided on the entire season, but I'll be playing Richard III, and we're doing Twelfth Night. I'll be reprising Sir Toby Belch, based on my grandfather.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for doing this. First of all,
Jason.
And everybody, please, if you're in Los Angeles or if you're coming to Los Angeles, please see as many shows as you can. I do it every year, as many weeks as possible, because it's one of my favorite things to do here. And again, also thank you for exposing me to something new. I love this. This is a great album. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And again, thank you for coming, and everybody, thank you for listening. And as always, have a good thing.
Thank you.
But if you put on a concert of music by Honegger or Schoenberg or Bartók, the public keeps away. And it's up to you, all of you, to attend these functions, to encourage the arts, and see that the money is spent on things like an opera house. You know that I was told the other day that the Hamburg Town Council spends more money on the opera alone than the Arts Council spends on the entire arts in Great Britain. Yes. I don't know. Now that may well be. But then, take it this way. Look at the money we spend on armament. Look at the money we devote to senseless things. And for me, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me now. For me, life is going to start when I find myself living in a proper civilized society with no color bar and no race riots. And that's not the worst, but in a society where young people stand up when they feel that some injustice is done, because they don't. People don't stand up. They will not stand up. They sit back and they say, oh, this is a great pity, and that's that. But that's when life is going to start for me, when I find people standing up and do something about the things they feel strongly about. These appalling things. That's all.
Comedy on Vinyl is a production of Stolen Dress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Visit stolendress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, rate us highly, and write your reviews. You can follow us on Facebook.com/ComedyOnVinyl and Twitter @ComedyOnVinyl.
This is the motley-minded gentleman that I have so often met in the forest. He has been to court here, he swears.
Oh, yes. If any man doubt that, let him put me to my purgation. Yes, yes. I've trod a measure, yes. I've flattered a lady, yes. I've been politic with my friend and smooth with mine enemy. I've undone 3 tailors. I've had 4 quarrels. And I'd like to have fought one.
And how was that ta'en up?
Faith, sir, we found it was upon the 7th cause.
Again?
The 7th cause.
Oh, I see. How upon the 7th cause? But my lord, like you this fellow?
I like him very well. Oh, good you, sir, I desire you of the like. Sir, I press in here amongst the rest of the country copulatives. To swear and to forswear according as marriage binds and blood breaks. Ah, the ill-favoured thing, sir, a poor thing, but mine own. A poor human of mine to take upon me that which no man else will. Rich honesty dwells in your poor house, sir, like your pearl and your foul oyster.
By my faith, he is very swift and sententious.
According to the fool's boat, sir, and such dulcet diseases.
But how did you find the quarrel upon the 7th cause?
Ah, faith, sir, upon a lie 7 times removed. Body, bear your body more seeming. Very good. I did dislike the cut of a certain courtier's beard. He sent me word that if I said his beard was not well cut, he was of the mind that it was. This is called the retort courteous. If I sent him word again it was not well cut, he would say he cut it to please himself. This is called the quip modest. If again it was not well cut, he would say, I spake not true. This is called the reply churlish. If again it was not well cut, he disabled my judgment. This is called the reproof valiant. If again it was not well cut, he would say, I lie. This is called the countercheck quarrelsome. If again it was not well cut, we move to the lie circumstantial. And then the lie direct.
And how often did you say that his beard was not well cut?
Oh, sir, I durst go no further than the lie circumstantial. Oh, he durst not give me the lie direct. So we measured swords and parted.
Can you nominate now, in order, the degrees of the lie?
Yes! Yes, I can! Yes, we quarrel in print, as you have books for good manners. Yes, I can name you the degrees. Ha! The first, the retort courteous, the second, the quip modest, the third, the reply churlish, the fourth, the reproof valiant, the fifth, the countercheck quarrelsome, the sixth, the lie, the seventh, the lie. But I will now do it in mime. In reverse order. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the 7 stages of the quarrel. Would you like to now hear the 7 ages of man? Very well at weddings. You've already heard it? Someone else is doing my material?
Is not this a rare fellow, my lord? He's as good as anything, and yet a fool.
He uses his folly like a stalking horse, and under the presentation of that, he shoots his wit.